morning everybody, so we're on chapter 32 of Phoenix today. They trudged back through the freezing cold caves in silence, and sat with Mystica and Nox in the overwhelming gloom. There was nothing left to say. They were each lost in their own thoughts, their own private hell. Lucky had never felt more hopeless. He thought he'd known bad times before, but this was the worst it had ever been. He shivered. He was so cold, a deadly cold that sapped his will to live. But wait, one side of his body wasn't so cold. In fact, it felt warm, and it was getting warmer every moment. Fumbling with the electrocuffs, he twisted round to touch the side of his coat. The pocket felt positively hot. He peered down at it and was startled to see a fiery glow steaming up from the opening. Quickly, he emptied the pocket out onto the frozen ground, and from it tumbled a tiny chick. It was smaller than the palm of his hand, but it was complete and intact. It stood there staring at him with wide-open eyes. Its plumage shone with crimson gold light, stunning against the cold blue ice. A phoenix. "Bazooka?" he breathed. The tiny bird blinked. She tipped her head to one side, as if she was trying to remember something. She flexed her beak, still not quite able to speak. "Ba! Ba!" she squeaked in a minuscule voice. "Bazooka!" he said. She hopped up and perched on his shoulder, glowing like a little sun. Radiant with heat and light, she warmed that glacial gloom that surrounded them. "Is that Bazooka?" gasped Frolics. "But how?" "I don't know," said Lucky. "I found a feather in the wreckage of the wheel. I put it in my pocket, and somehow from that one feather, she came back." "Of course," said Bixer. "That's what phoenixes do. They're immortal. They always rise again from the flames." "Bazooka?" said Frolics again. The little phoenix looked at the huge Axa, and her feathers glowed even brighter. She gazed eagerly into Frolics's eyes. "Ba! Ba!" she chirped. Frolics shook his head sadly. "I'm sorry, Bazooka," he said. "The prof's not coming back. He's gone." "Bazoo?" she asked, reaching out her beak to him, as if she wanted to hop over and perch on his shoulder. Frolics turned away and stared into the gloom. He couldn't look at her any more. "No, I can't. I ain't your master, Bazooka." "Bazooka!" She shuddered and huddled onto Lucky's shoulder. But illuminated now by the light of the phoenix, Mystica blinked and opened her eyes. She was conscious once more. She turned and saw Captain Nox beside her on the icy ground. "Oh, my dearest," she whispered as she took him in her arms and held him tightly. "What has become of Ozymandias?" she said in a weak voice. "Where are we?" They told her everything that had happened. I'm so sorry," said Lucky. "It's all my fault. I should never have brought us here." Bixer Quicksilver shook her head, eyes glowing with determination as she gazed at the reborn phoenix. "No," she said. "If we hadn't come here, we would never have learned the truth about the galaxy. We know about the wolf, and the star burner, and the space wall. We know secrets now that no one else knows, and we have a shot at fixing it. If we can get King Theobroma to make peace, like Major Dashwood said, then we can still save Aquarius. With a single word, the king could start peace talks with President Thorntree, and then they'd have to stop the killing stars. And you know what? I reckon he's right here on Charon. This is their secret base after all." "But why would the king make peace now, when he never has before?" said Frolics. "Because of Lucky. He's the key. If we can just get him to see Lucky." "What?" said Lucky. "Why?" The idea of seeing the Axa King scared him senseless. "Because if Mystica's right, and you really are an Astraeus, then you're the proof we need. Your power proves the stars don't want us to make war on humans. Why else would an Astraeus come down in human body?" Frolics scratched his horns, taking in her words. "You think Lucky's an Astraeus?" He peered into Lucky's eyes. His gaze seemed to reach right into Lucky's mind. "Huh," he said. "He could be. It makes sense. But which Astraeus?" Lucky gaped at him. "Frolics, not you too. I can't believe you're saying that." "Even if you're not an Astraeus," argued Bixer, "why would the stars give powers like that to a human? There's no way they want us to fight the humans. If we can just get the king to see your power, then he'll see the truth and stop the war, and Mystica will live." "Perhaps," said Mystica. She shivered and then coughed violently, great hacking coughs that tore her apart from the inside. "But how do you propose to put this to the king, Bixer? They will not listen to you. Look around you. There is no escape from these caves. Even if you did somehow find a way out, you would only freeze to death on the surface, to say nothing of that army that guards us." "I'll find a way," said Bixer in a low voice. She kicked the icy ground with a hoof. "I'll break us out of here. I'll fight every last one of them if I have to." "These are the people who took Joxy and Jonathan from us," said Mystica quietly. "What hope have you against people like that?" Bixer closed her eyes, bit her lip. She couldn't reply. The only sound was water dripping in the distance. Lucky didn't like her plan. He didn't want to be the key to it. He didn't want to be the key to anything. But he could still hear the stars crying in space. It broke his heart to hear them, and it broke his heart to watch Mystica die. He wished the real Astraeus would show up. They could save Aquarius, save Mystica, save the galaxy. But where were they? He had to face the truth. They weren't coming to save the day. No one else was going to save Lucky and his friends. They were all alone, with only what they had inside them to fall back on. And so, though he hated to admit it, there was only one conclusion here. He cleared his throat. I think Bix is right," he said. "Not about me being an Astraeus, but about us breaking out of here and getting the king to make peace." They all stared at him. "She's right," he repeated. "I can feel it. The stars are going to die if this war doesn't end soon. We've got to act fast if we're going to save them. We've got to act now." "But how?" said Frolics in a small voice. "Mystica's right. It's impossible." "I know it looks kind of hopeless," Lucky admitted. "I know we don't have a ship or weapons or anything, but we've got to try. Even if we fail, we've got to try. See, I've been Bix's training partner all the way here. If she thinks she's got a chance, then I believe she can do it. She can fight her way out of this horrible place, and I'll back her up all the way." "Bazooki!" chirruped the glowing phoenix on his shoulder. He turned to look at her, and her new light gave him courage he didn't know he had. For if Bazooka had survived, after all, then perhaps he might too, despite Gala's prophecies. And so he took a deep, deep breath, steeled himself, and said the words he'd sworn never to say again. I'll even use my power if I have to. I'll do it, just this once." He turned to Bixer and shrugged. "After all, what's the point of power if you don't use it to save the people you love?" Bixer grinned. "Yes," she said. "Thank you, Lucky." She turned to Mystica. "See, we have a chance. 2 of us now. What do you say?" Mystica looked at the captain in her arms. "I'm sorry, Bixer. I don't like your plan. It's far too dangerous. And I don't believe the captain would like it either." Bixer leaned into Captain Knox, curled up on the frozen ground. She took hold of his eyes and looked into his eyes. Those burned-out, empty eyes reflecting the terrible nothing he must have seen. "Captain," she said softly, "can you hear me?" And as she spoke to him, as she held him, as Bazooka glowed above them all, the captain blinked. A spark of fire flickered in his eyes. Just a tiny spark, like the faintest ember of volcanic lava in a mountain of cold, dark ash. "Captain," said Bixer again. He looked at her, as if from a million miles away, and then a single word passed his lips. "You—" Bixer stared at him in shock. "Captain?" He shuddered, but that tiny spark of light was still there at the back of his eyes. "You— matter," croaked the captain. The spark of fire flickered a little brighter. It was growing, catching light in spite of all the darkness around it. "Keep doing it, Bixer," said Lucky. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." What is she doing? He wondered. How is she bringing him back? Is there something that cures the living death? Something that protects against it? Whatever the answer, Captain Knox was looking more like his old self every moment. "Oh, my dearest!" cried Mystica, embracing him. "You're coming back!" Captain, we're going to get you out of here, said Bixer, her eyes glowing with hope. We're going to fight our way out and you're going to be okay. No, groaned Knox. Focus gradually returned to his eyes, and clarity came back to his words. No violence, because you matter, Bixer. You and Frolics. He sat up shakily. I want you to be safe, to be Star Talkers one day like Mystica. But I can't be like Mystica, said Bixer. The Professor told me there are many ways of being a Star Talker. Well, my way is to fight for what I believe in. Mystica looked at her and shook her head. That is not the way, Bixer. It's my way, and as long as there are people trying to kill us, it always will be. Bixer, said the captain, horns glinting in the cold blue light. Enough foolishness. I am ordering you. No violence. Bixer shook her eyes. Very slowly, Bixer shut her eyes. Very slowly, she shook her head. I'm sorry. I owe you both my life. I've always done what you wanted, but this time, I can't. I just can't. She opened her eyes again and met the captain's gaze. I don't want to do this, but if those are really your orders, then I've got to disobey them. The captain stared at her. You cannot beat them, Bixer, he said. They're too strong for you. They're not, she said. They're not. The fire in her eyes rose up, strong and silver and totally alive. I've had enough of letting them do whatever they want to us. We are getting out of here, and I am getting us out, and you're all coming with me. This time, the captain and Mystica could not reply. They sat there speechless, staring at their granddaughter. Good, said Bixer. The decision's made. She turned to her brother. Frolics, I need your help. Someone has to carry them out of here. They can't make it on their own. Can you do it? Frolics grinned. Course I can. I'll be right behind you. He turned to Mystica and Knox. Don't worry, he told them. I'll take care of you. I promise. And out of the shadows now came a man with a moustache in a tattered starship commander's uniform. Forgive me, said Major Dashwood. I couldn't help overhearing. I can help you escape, but I have a little experience of combat, if you'll accept the help of a former Shadow Guard. We'll take all the help we can get, said Bixer. She looked at the solid steel door, the ice-encrusted rock walls, the vidcams rotating on the ceiling, and breathed in sharply, like someone who was surprised to finally get what she wanted, and now wasn't sure she wanted it after all. But then she clenched her fists and turned to Lucky. Right, that backup you mentioned, you ready to go find the king and beat some sense into his stupid head? And that's chapter 32. So this afternoon it'll be chapter 33, because we haven't got that much left, and then we'll be all finished. So I hope you enjoyed that and have a lovely day today.